So wonderful. Welcome everyone to the Leading for Results webinar. I would like to invite our link colleague Chuck Shobak to do our welcome for us.
Thank you, Charisse. Hi, everybody. My name is Chuck Chopak, and up until recently, I've been the acting country lead for the Feed the Future Bangladesh Policy Link Agricultural Policy Activity, also known as the Agricultural Policy Activity. In our conversations with you over the past few months, the Feed the Future IPs and national agricultural stakeholders, one of the major constraints that repeatedly came up in our conversations was about the need to strengthen the leadership and management capacity of local actors and communities to affect and influence food security policy and governance decisions. As a result, PolicyLink and the Agricultural Policy Activity are offering this 4-part webinar series called Leading for Results. The webinar series is based on proven approaches that PolicyLink and its predecessor projects have provided in several countries. As you're aware, agricultural policy reform and food security are very complex issues involving many sectors, disciplines, and interests that require the voice, insights, and participation of a diverse set of actors. Our experience in PolicyLink has shown that for an effective policy process, implementation, and performance, leadership across a broad set of stakeholders and institutions, government, civil society, NGOs, the private sector, value chain actors, media, academia, and so on, all need leadership skills. Leadership needs to come from all stakeholders and at all levels, including at the national, regional, and community levels. The inclusion and collaboration we envision is very ambitious, but necessary to build and strengthen the connections between policymakers and citizens, private and public sector stakeholders, and foster a shared understanding and collaborative action to transform the agricultural policy systems. I want to provide that brief introduction because as we've been having an ongoing conversation, I wanted to make a link between what we've been talking about and where we're going. But before I turn the mic over to Charisse, I would like to first introduce Fahim Khan, the incoming Bangladesh Agricultural Policy Country Lead. Fahim, as many of you know, many of you know Fahim, but Fahim is a skilled leader, manager, and technical expert that our activity needs to achieve its ambitious goals, objectives, and results. In addition to those attributes, Fahim has also worked in Bangladesh and is a fluent Bangla speaker. Fahim, would you like to say hi and add a couple additional information about yourself?
Hi, Chuck. Thanks very much for the intro. So, Assalamu alaikum, Adam to everybody, my Bangladesh colleagues. So, like Chuck said, my name is Fahim Khan. I've been in the development sector for, oh my gosh, about 25, 30 years now. And a significant portion of my time I did spend in Bangladesh. My background actually starts from monitoring, evaluation, and learning. I then, became chief of party in various places across Africa, and for various programs within Bangladesh. So I was with CARE for a very, very long time, and then moved on to Mercy Corps, had my own global consulting firm. And I joined in this position in July 15th. So this is now coming up to about 10 days in this position. I'm really excited. This is fantastic. Forgive me for not putting my camera on, but maybe I will put it on, but I'm not fully appropriately attired. Hang on a sec, because it's extremely early morning here. So this is me. Hopefully you can see me. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you and participating as much as I can today. So thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Fahim, and again, welcome to the activity in the PolicyLink. And Charisse, now over to you, so we can start the program.
Great, thank you, Chuck, and welcome Fahim. I would also like to introduce the facilitation team, which will be with you over these 4 weeks. And so I'll invite them to turn on their cameras and wave. And so we have Laura Geyer with us, and Tawida Alam, Bir Chowardy, Helen Petrozola, and Courtney Oster. And so we're all here supporting you as we're on this learning journey together. And so you'll definitely get to hear our voices and see us in breakout rooms. Okay. All right. So we would like to make sure that we get you used to the functionality of Zoom, although I know you've been using it for a while, but these are active sessions and we want to make sure that we hear your voice. The first question that we have for you is, what is one thing you hope to learn from today's session? And we invite you to put that into the chat box. What is one thing you hope to learn from today's session? Please put your response in the chat box. All right. Saida, leadership, great. Others? About change? Okay, leading towards a specific goal in time. Thank you very much. Sustainable change, Abdul says situational leadership, team management, leading by example, manage the team and the project. Great. Working with public sector actors. Influencing policymakers, great. Empathy, all right. Change management. All right, and so when we, all of these are really important, and as we go through the sessions, you'll see that we'll hit on a lot of these topics. In particular, this session is on mindset, and so we'll definitely see how what you're aiming to get out of it connects. Being change management, change maker, yes, yes. And today we'll talk about how that starts with self. Thank you all for sharing that. Okay, and so throughout the session, we'll want to hear your feedback through the chat, which we did, and your thoughts through chat, but also we'd love to hear voices. And so to help us do that, it would be helpful if you raised your hand. And so you can do that by going to the bottom of your Zoom screen, clicking the reactions button. All right, and you'll see an option for raising your hand. Okay. But you'll also see other options there as well for different emoticons to show happy or clapping or thumbs up, and we appreciate that as well. Okay, and so we invite you to try using those. All right, so I see that Tanya has done that, but others to raise your hand or show us an emoticon. Yeah, just so that we know that you found it and it's at the bottom of your screen. Okay, great. All right, we're seeing lots of thumbs up. Right. Okay. Awesome. All right, and so as we move to our next slide, we know that there is a lot that is going on around us in the world, personally and professionally. And so we have some images that we want to see how they best represent how you feel in this moment. Okay, and so we can call those images up. The first one is a tightrope, walking on a tightrope. Right? The second one maybe an image of growth. The third, maybe an image of shock. And then the fourth, going various ways. Okay, and so which one of these represents how you feel personally and professionally, given what's going on around you? Okay, so we invite you to share that in the poll. Image 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hmm? And you can interpret those images however you want to interpret them. Okay, so still a few more, yeah, to register their vote. Okay. Great, and so if you could put that vote in the poll that's up on the screen. All right, a couple more. Okay, great. Courtney, could you show us those results? All right. So it seems like picture 2 represents how more of us are feeling personally or professionally. And then we also, a few less for picture 1, and then picture 3 and 4 at a time. I wonder, for those who picked picture 2, why did you select that image? Maybe if you could raise your hand and maybe share with us verbally, or you could put it in the chat box. We would love to hear voices. For picture 2, why did you select that representation? Hmm. Right, so I know it takes some time for chats to come through. There were 11 of us that selected picture 2. So I know one person, at least one, will share. Okay, thank you. So Dr. Shohab said that, okay, let's see. Oh, we're getting a lot now. Learning and contributing daily, both personally and professionally. Okay. It moves gradually up. From Mohammed, because of growth yourself, team is achieving the project goal as well. Great, great, thank you. All right, and then for picture 1, for someone who selected that, would someone like to share why you selected that one?
Sharice Tanya has raised a hand.
Thank you. Tanya.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because the question was that how we actually seen or the perception of us professionally and personally right at this moment around everything. And I felt like picture 1 because for last 2 years we are only balancing, we're looking like personally and professionally while we are working on a project, we're working towards the goals. Mostly we are seeing that we are balancing in this pandemic issues, and we are working remotely, a lot of countries, despite of every barriers, we're trying to support in the field, in the development sector. Yeah, that's what I thought, that this is the most relevant right at this moment.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tanya. Wonderful to hear your voice and what you had to share. So kind of with all that's going on, it's a sense of balancing, right? And also seeing that in the chat as well. Yeah. taking challenge and seeing insight, leading by example, balancing work and personal life, juggling a lot of responsibilities, multitasking, working from home. All right, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And so we put this in front of us to start as the thoughts, the emotions, how we're interpreting our context all has to deal with mindset. And so as we transition to Laura giving us a bit of background on the research around mindset, we want to take into account that all of this kind of contributes to the mindset that we bring into this webinar and that we bring every day. So I'll ask Laura to come.
Thank you so much, Cherise, and thanks to all of you, first of all, for being so lovely and candid with your current experience and your interpretations. And I guess what strikes me is looking at how we all are coming to this moment with our own tailored and unique perception of how we're doing, and beginning to appreciate that there is no cookie cutter, there is no singular way of viewing this moment, that in fact we all bring our own distinct mindset and interpretation, as Cherise said. And that's really what we want to build on as we begin to look at the work of Dr. Carol Dweck and what she has to say about her body of research on mindset. I was struck as I looked in the chat box at your wonderful aspirations and hopes for what we take away from our work today and from the series overall, looking at better teaming, stronger leadership, collaboration, strengthened communication. And I truly believe Dr. Dweck makes a compelling argument that it all starts with us and our ability to be very thoughtful about how we lead in the service of being catalyzing stronger leadership aspects and qualities. And in many ways, that maps directly back to the notion of mindset. So Dr. Carol Dweck emerged about, I'm going to say in the late aughts, maybe 2007, 2008, with a body of research coming from Stanford University on the notion of mindset and the critical importance mindset plays in order for us to be successful at whatever endeavor we move into trying to accomplish. And so as we walk through this, please, if you have a question, you have an insight, welcome you either putting your hand up or dropping it in the chat box. What Dr. Dweck began to notice, first of all, her sector of expertise is education and human and more particularly child development. So as Dr. Dweck was working with cohorts of children in her initial studies, she was surprised to discover something that really is the basis of the whole notion of mindset. What she began to see in these children were, in fact, that very clearly two kinds of mindsets began to emerge in a very pronounced way in her studies. Now, she gave monikers to this. She said the first mindset she began to see, she called a fixed mindset. Don't worry, we're going to go a bit more explicitly into what that means. But in certain cohorts of kids, she saw fixed mindset emerge very clearly. Contrary to that, she saw a second mindset that also emerged, and the language she gave that is a growth mindset. Now, in many ways, these two mindsets are very different from one another, and what she began to see is evidence that your mindset directly impacts the results of whatever it is you're efforting to achieve. But let's be more explicit about what these mindsets imply. So as Dweck began to look at the characteristics of fixed versus growth, the first thing she looked at was really what are core beliefs that fuel these respective mindsets. Now, friends, as I start to kind of unfold Dweck's research, it is important to notice something she brings forward very clearly in her work. What Dweck says is every one of us, you, me, Sharice, Chuck, Fahim, all of us, we all have fixed and growth mindset about a range of different things. We are not all one or the other. Really, the utility of this work is to be having enough self-awareness that I can begin to discern where does my fixed mindset appear and where does my growth mindset appear. So can I strategically begin to look at what triggers which mindset and why? So with that in mind, let me share a bit of what these look like. So as we look at the fixed mindset, what Dweck discovered was the belief that underpins a fixed mindset is this. You are born with a set of skills or talents or abilities, and you will never have any more than that. So you cannot learn or grow something that you do not have. It is a very contained perspective on how much development you actually can engage in. Now, on the other side of the equation, the belief that maps directly to a growth mindset suggests, skills and abilities can be developed and polished over time. You can learn and grow. We actually have a phrase, right? I'm a lifelong learner. The growth mindset puts that into practice. Till the day I die, inshallah, I will be able to be cogent enough to continue to improve myself, to develop myself. Now let's pause here for a moment. Sometimes people will say, well, Laura, are you saying that at my age, I could start playing the piano and become Mozart? No, that's not what this is saying. What this is saying is, at your age, you could start playing the piano. And if you believe, well, I'm too old, there's no way I could ever learn now, you won't. The growth mindset says, well, you could start now and you don't know how proficient you might become. Very different optics on growing and trying new things. Beliefs are only part of the equation. Next, Dweck actually looked at, so what is the focus of these mindsets? And more importantly, what become the metrics of progress and worth? And again, she discovered two incredibly important distinctions. The first actually that she saw was with a fixed mindset. What's incredibly key is your performance, your outcomes, your results. At the end of the day, you don't want to look bad in front of other people. She also began to note that there is an explicit link between the language we use and the perception of mindset. So for example, if you are constantly reinforcing outcomes and being number one, being the best, at the end of the day, that's what's most important. Dweck suggests fixed mindset praise creates and supports a fixed mindset approach. Again, on the other side, what we see with a growth mindset, the focus instead is far more not on outcome, but on the process of development and growing. Improving is enough. And again, she directly saw the kind of syntactical, linguistic linkage to growth mindset praise, supporting and cultivating a growth mindset approach. Now, she tells a story that's actually kind of important in getting our hands around this. As she was working with these cohorts of young children, what she saw was she would give them puzzles to collaborate on and to work and solve together. So she actually gave a fairly simple, straightforward puzzle to a group of fixed mindset children and a group of growth mindset children. And of course, both of them, it was very easy. They did it. They got it right. Now, to the fixed mindset children, Dweck offered some fixed mindset praise. She said, look at how beautiful that puzzle is. It's the best. You did a great job. To the growth mindset children, she said, you all collaborated beautifully in getting this done. What a great job. Next, she said she offered them the possibility of taking on a puzzle that was more difficult, more challenging. She wanted to see what would both mindsets do when it got a little bit tougher. Interestingly, the fixed mindset children refused. No, we're good. We already succeeded. We're number one. We don't need to take on anything more difficult. The growth mindset children said, that's great. Absolutely. We can challenge ourselves. Let's go. She actually forced both groups to take on the puzzle. And what happened was, of course, the fixed mindset children did very badly because they believed they didn't have what it took to stretch and flex into the more challenging opportunity. The growth mindset kids, maybe they didn't get it all right, but they had a learning curve that they accentuated. Now, here's where it gets interesting. She then went back to the original easy puzzle and asked them to do it again. The fixed mindset children struggled to regain their ability to solve the easy puzzle quickly. And more importantly, she asked each group to self-report on the quality of their deliverable and their process. The fixed mindset children were 3 times more likely to lie about their outcome than the growth mindset children. That's how important looking good is to the fixed mindset. So what Dweck took away is this, and this is a quote from her book, and for me, it really, really rings true. She says, our beliefs and our focus have tremendous impact on our ability to learn, to grow, to adapt, and to lead productively. And then Dweck says, and you have to add 2 key words to this sentence to understand it fully, or not. There is a great adage by the American inventor Henry Ford, one of the fathers of the motor car, right? Henry Ford said, think you can or think you cannot. Either way, it's up to you. That's the power that our mindset has. So as we go along, what we need to do now is look at the mindset, and more particularly, how does having this optic impact our ability and potentially communicating it to our team's ability for growth and development. And what Dweck suggests, wonderful comments in the chat box. The person often shows fixed mindset to particular situations and sometimes shows the opposite. Does that mean this person has a dual identity? Maheen, great question. Dweck would say no, that's human. Remember, what she says is we have both mindsets, all of us. The question is, what triggers one or the other? The more we can have consciousness around, in this situation, I am very fixed. In this situation, I am more growth. That allows us then to be able to position ourselves differently and potentially expand our mindset. And we're going to talk more about that. That was an excellent question. Okay. So what Dweck says is whenever you're wanting to do something new, to grow and develop, there are 4 key ingredients that go into that practice. The first is you have to expend effort. And of course, in expending effort, it's brand new. It's something you've never done before. So there will inherently be challenges and probably mistakes because it's new. As you make mistakes, ideally, you'll receive feedback about what to do differently. And Dweck suggests this is cyclical. So your feedback will then feed into renewed effort, and this cycle will start again. As she looked at fixed versus growth, again, the moving towards some kind of growth and development looks very different. So with the fixed mindset, what we see is there is a belief that effort's something you expend when you're not good enough. I should already be able to do this. To learn something new becomes a very daunting proposition. She says challenges, the fixed mindset may back down, they may avoid, they may deflect a challenging situation because it feels like a threat to their competence, to their persona, to how they're perceived. And goodness gracious, when a fixed mindset makes a mistake, it becomes a metric of failure. That's her language. It leads to deep discouragement, and unfortunately, feedback becomes very personal, not about the work, not about the effort, but about the person. And one of the behaviors we often can see is a defensiveness that comes to the fore. However, growth mindset, if you bring a growth mindset to a new proposition, it looks very different. With a growth mindset, there's the understanding effort is part of it. You know, if you're familiar with the author, Malcolm Gladwell, and I'm unsure if it's in his, I think it's in his book, Blink. It's either Blink or Outliers, but I think it's Blink. He talks about it, and it's a very well-known adage, 10,000 hours to mastery. And in the more recent research, this has come under fire, but I will confess, I find it actually quite comforting that with tenacity, with ongoing feedback, with continued practice, you can actually somewhat master something new. That is absolutely part of the growth mindset's approach to development. Effort is a critical part of the learning process. And the growth mindset knows challenges are something to be embraced. That's how you learn, you work through them. When you make a mistake, you reframe that. That's not a failure on your part. It's a moment to learn so you don't do it again. And then last but not least, feedback is welcome. It actually is an incredibly important part of this mastery process. So it's a chance to learn. And to put that feedback into action, again, the cycle starts with effort. So I love plan, do, check, action. Absolutely. You've got it. That's right. So with that all in mind, that actually leads us to begin to ask the question, and I think it's one that is key. So what does this actually mean for you? Now, let me ask, and either Ashraful, thank you, Ashraful. Feedback should be positive. You know what, that is true, and I certainly think that positive feedback can take many forms. You can actually deliver a corrective message with positive intent. What you need to be thoughtful about is those with a fixed mindset may struggle to hear it as positive. And that's a place where, as a leader, beginning to get more purposeful in how you craft your feedback can prove incredibly important. Change, absolutely, Mohammed. This is the heart of change. A growth mindset and embracing change go hand in hand. Absolutely correct. Well done. So I'm trusting you all have the opportunity to actually take the mindset inventory. Did everybody have a chance to do that? And if you could pop in the chat box, yes or no. Did you have a chance to take the online mindset inventory? Excellent, excellent. Thank you, friends. Wonderful. So what we want to do is give you a chance to begin to reflect. And again, let me underscore Dweck's understanding. Where do you have more of a fixed mindset? Where do you have more of a growth mindset? And does one predominate over the other? So what we're going to ask you to do first is I want you to have your mindset inventory results ready, but I want you to first make a best guess about your predominant mindset. So in just a moment, Courtney is going to share with you a poll that will appear on your screen again. And I want you to drop inside. This is a wonderful moment of self-awareness, and ask yourself, do I have more of a strong growth mindset? Perhaps I have a growth mindset with some fixed ideas. Maybe I have more of a fixed mindset with some growth ideas. Or perhaps I have more of a strong fixed mindset. Courtney, can I ask you to go ahead and feature the poll? And let's see where folks actually think they're coming in at. And by the way, this is anonymous, so don't worry. You're not declaring to the world what you think you might actually be. Let me invite everyone to go ahead and to take the poll. No wrong answer here, my friends. This is just a chance for a bit of stretching into the emotional intelligence competency of self-awareness. All right, well done. I've got about half of you have voted. Let me invite you all to vote. It would do my heart such good to see every single one of you vote. We've got 75%. I still need about 7 of you to go ahead and weigh in. Again, all you need to do is click on the one that you think best reflects your predominant mindset. Still looking for a few more of you to vote. We're at about 80%. Anyone else? All right. Courtney, please go ahead. Can I ask you to publish the results so we can see? So I see 3/4 of you say, I've got growth mindset, but there's some unique fixed ideas. And then we've got 22% of you saying you feel you have a strong growth mindset. And bless your heart, 4% of you saying fixed mindset with some growth ideas. And let me share with you, my friends, in the spirit of full disclosure, I am a fixed mindset with some growth ideas. And that actually was an important piece for me to recognize in order to be able to begin managing it more productively. Kudos to you. Well done. And so grateful for your being straightforward about that. What we want to do, though, is to give you the opportunity to actually get a sense of what your inventory results suggest. So if you have your results in front of you, let me say you are not going to be asked to share these results. This is only for you. This is a chance for you to do some reflecting, to compare, did my best guess align with what the inventory suggests? So please keep this to yourselves and use this as fodder for doing some better thinking, right? But what the inventory offers is if you scored between 60 to 45, it suggests you have a strong growth mindset. If in fact you scored between 44 to 34, perhaps you have a growth mindset, but there are those unique places that offer more fixed ideas. If you scored 33 to 21, and that was me, you have more of a fixed mindset, but there are some unique places where you have some growth ideas. And then last but not least, if you scored between 20 and 0, perhaps you have a bit more of a fixed mindset. All right, so I'm going to pause. I have bombarded you with a lot of information about Dr. Dweck's work on mindset, and I would love to open the floor for a moment to questions or reflections you have at this point. Any questions or thoughts? Please, Fahim, you're welcome.
Well, Laura, and this is really interesting. So one of the questions that pops to my mind is, what would happen if you had a supervisor who had a fixed mindset and a supervisee who had a growth mindset? I'm kind of curious because I could see potential kind of issues with the relationship like that. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious, is there any kind of reflections on that and how you'd handle a situation like that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Before I respond, I would welcome anyone as you think about that. What do we do? What do we do if we have a supervisor or a direct report that has the opposite mindset? Let's say a supervisor that's far more fixed and a direct report that's far more growth. What do you think? What's going to happen and what might we do? What do you think? Oh, well, congratulations. Some of you scored much higher. Congratulations. Well done. Don't fret. The supervisee would soon be looking for a new job. That might be the case. The supervisee may motivate or influence the supervisor to take on more of a growth mindset. Nicely done, Tawidul, and that is a possibility. Abdul Jabbar says, understand their abilities can be developed. Yeah. And so what you are actually highlighting, and all of you have it correct, is in fact, if my supervisor is much more fixed and I am much more growth, if I can use my communication skills and my influencing ability to invite potentially growth opportunities, that might have some impact. And I see we have a couple of hands up, which is very exciting. Mazibur, please, you're welcome. What do you think?
Thank you, Laura. Actually, in this case, with regard to Payne's question, the in this case, the supervisor could talk with in a big forum where that persons, I mean supervisors and his or her supervisor is present in a big forum where she can tell his or her story, so that the top or the say country director positions level, that person can understand and can act accordingly, or can give more opportunity to the supervisor. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Maheen, what would you like to add?
Well, most of the time what I have seen is that the supervisee, he or she has to adjust with the supervisor's fixed mindset. It's because of the superiority complex, because of the organization structure or the hierarchy. So that's the very, I would say, very difficult or a challenging process in the organization.
Yes, yes, completely agreed. So appreciating there may be constraints that actually support or reinforce a fixed mindset, and helping explore where there's latitude to deploy more of a growth mindset might be helpful. Fahim, thank you. You're supporting Maheen's perspective. Well done. Tanya offers the supervisor should appreciate a feedback session, and personal counseling might be helpful. And in fact, thank you for that, Tanya. And you know, one of the things we know that the more a leader within a system or organization goes up the ladder, the less feedback is available to him, her, or them. So creating the space for those reflections can be incredibly important in starting to invite more of a growth mindset. These are really important questions, and what I'm appreciating in each of your reflections is that, Abdul Jabbar, in the public sector, the boss is always right. Yeah, that's true in the private sector sometimes as well. And so the question becomes, how do you in fact have a deep and strong enough relationship to actually offer reflections and feedback? The supervisee will catch up soon as he or she has growth mindset. At some point, he will bear some fixed mindset. It's possible. That's possible. Let me move us then to what we think is an important part of this conversation, which is the notion of, so if I know I have a fixed mindset, maybe it's strong, maybe it's very singular around certain things or in certain situations, is it even possible to have more of a growth mindset? And I'm excited to share with you the answer is absolutely yes. And even better news, what we know now is that science is on your side. And so I am truly curious, are any of you familiar with the concept and the science behind neuroplasticity? Do any of you know about neuroplasticity? Again, feel free to come off as mute or let me know in the chat box. Is that something you have some familiarity with? Just give me a quick flavor for your depth of experience with neuroplasticity. Yes, no? What do you think? Thank you, my dear. Well, Claire Rahman says no. Thank you for that. No, says Dr. Sharifa Sutapa. Excellent. Okay, thank you, guys. super helpful. And so what I'm going to offer to you is a layman's understanding of neuroplasticity. Goodness knows I am not a neuroscientist. Is it the changing ability of people with the environment? Yes, Tawidul. The ability of the brain to change through a process. Wahidul, that is excellent. You guys are spot on. So the exciting news, and this has been, I'm going to say, in the last 20 years, brain science has made enough strides forward that we now actually have an evidence base that the brain not only can, but does continue to evolve until the day we die. So again, what historically has been, I think, taught that, you know, there's childhood development to a certain age, but at a certain age, your brain is finished. Again, very fixed mindset. So therefore, I can't take on anything new. Well, we now have neuroscience and brain science showing us not only that's not the case, that's actually not true. So what we know with the notion of neuroplasticity is, in fact, as a child, obviously your brain is developing, but as you grow, your brain continues to develop and to path itself synaptically. So if you think of the brain as like a computer motherboard, and you see it's creating these pathways that create habits, practices, approaches, the institutionalized behaviors we use in our everyday life, what we now know is that those behaviors result in things that can be helpful or destructive. So you see, like smoking or a language that we learn. But over time, we can actually change those habits. And any of you who have stopped doing something and replaced it with a more productive or positive habit have been using neuroplasticity in practice. So what the science says is, in fact, if you begin something new and you do it consistently, you will actually create a new neural pathway in your brain, and the old habit, the old practice that was not helpful actually begins to diminish. Literally, you can think and practice yourself into repathing your brain in a way that supports looking at things and doing things differently. Now, here's where I like to share the story. Thank you. Abdul Jabbar describes the reorganization of neural pathways in the brain. That's it in a nutshell. Perfectly put. I was sharing this work on growth mindset with chemistry colleagues at the American Chemical Society, which is actually an international organization of scientific thought leadership. And as we were talking about this, a lovely woman raised her hand and she said, Laura, I feel compelled to share a story with you that for me is neuroplasticity and growth mindset in action. What she shared was this. This woman's mother was one of twins, and it was twins, there's a girl and a boy. Her mother, who at this point in the story was in her 50s, had been deaf from birth, as had her twin brother. So both of them deaf all their lives. When in their 50s, science made a medical breakthrough, and there was surgery that these twins could have that would allow them to hear for the first time in their lives. Now, the doctor looked at them and said, you will be able to hear, but you need to know at your age, you will never be able to have a conversation on the phone. You won't be able to look at people and read their lips while you're listening. So that's not available to you, but you'll still be able to hear things like music, sounds. It will be wonderful. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The brother believes the doctor. He's a doctor, right? So the brother said, okay, I will never hear on a phone. However, this woman's mother said, I refuse to take that. I refuse to accept that. After the surgery, this woman's mother sat and watched television. And you know how on television you can have the captions at the bottom so you can read while you're watching? And it took her almost 3 years to get proficient enough to associate the words she's reading with the sounds she's hearing. But she did it, and after 3 years, her mother had remapped the neural pathways to the point she could have a conversation on the phone. It's a pretty striking, I mean, talk about a control group. You've got twins, exact same congenital challenges, going through the same process. One believes, and the other says, I'm going to do it differently. It's pretty striking. Thank you. I'm looking, I like brain to change through growth. Absolutely, Ashraful, that is correct. The brain can change through growth. So as I said, what we know, this vis-a-vis leadership is incredibly important, because how you look at a moment, how you interpret an opportunity can have tremendous impact on your ability to respond, to lead your team, to welcome new ideas or thought processes, to take it on board, and to offer a range of options. Your mindset is critical, and getting better at understanding what's keeping you from growth or fix is key. Remapping the brain, that is absolutely correct, Dr. Shirajum, Monira, I love that. That actually makes me happy, remapping the brain. And it's an intentional remapping of the brain. It's one we shape and we construct. All right, we are going to, in just a moment, take on an activity that will give you a chance to dig into this a bit more thoughtfully. Hold on one second. I'm looking to see, are there any other questions before we move into this? All right, so what I am going to do is I am going to invite my colleague, Sharice, to put us into a practice that will give us a chance to engage with this a bit more deeply. Sharice, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Laura, and thank you for taking us through that history and description of growth mindset, and also what we can do to remap our brains. So we want to first put you into kind of an individual reflection. And so there's a question up on the slide right now. What do you believe is the most significant barrier to embracing a growth mindset in your work? Okay, so a bit of reflection on that, and just jot down a note or two about that for yourself. Okay, the most significant barrier to embracing a growth mindset. I'll give you a minute or so to think about that. All right. So I trust that you've all thought about that and made a note to yourself. Great. And we're going to actually, instead of sharing it in the chat, we're going to put you into a group, a small group exercise, and to share it in that group. Right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to put you into breakout rooms. Great. I love seeing all these ideas come through. You're going to have really rich conversations in your breakout groups. We will go around in our breakout groups and have an opportunity for each person to share what they think is the most significant barrier to applying a growth mindset. And then after you've heard everyone share, we're going to ask you to select one barrier that you think, if it is removed, it could amplify collaboration and results the most. So one of those that was shared in the small group. And then we'll ask you to identify, with that barrier, for your group to identify one key strategy to manage or mitigate that barrier. Okay, so just to be creative and think through that strategy. You will have a facilitator, one of us who introduced ourselves at the beginning of the webinar, to help you through this conversation. And they'll also have a Google Doc where they will write down both that key barrier and the strategy to mitigate it. Okay. All right. So shortly we will put you into your breakout rooms. Your facilitator will introduce themselves. Please feel free to turn on your camera and your microphone so that you can have a full and robust conversation. Courtney, when you're ready, please send us to our breakouts.
For those of you that are still here, if you need any help or assistance going to your breakout room, please just let me know. Otherwise, please just click accept on the breakout room option and you'll be able to join your rooms. Again, if anyone needs any sort of assistance with getting into their breakout room, please just let me know. Otherwise, if you click on the breakout room button, you should be able to see which room you're supposed to be going to, and it should allow you to enter your room. Hello and welcome, Anurul. We are in breakout rooms right now, so we are going to come back in about 5 minutes, but I can send you to a breakout room to observe if you would like.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Please refer me any. I'm sorry to join late. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Welcome back. I think all of the breakout rooms are closed, and so everyone should be back with us. I trust that you had a good and fruitful conversation in your breakouts. Okay. I'm going to invite us all to read through the barriers that were provided in the various breakout rooms. All right, and so we can see that we've gotten 5 different barriers, and then we'll also scroll down to the strategies as well. Right. All right. And so I'm looking to Laura and Helen and others. Did you have someone prepared to do a report out in each group?
We did, but happy to go ahead and just have an overarching reflection, and
Okay.
grateful that we had colleagues willing to step in.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm actually going to ask Courtney to go back up to the top of the screen so that we could read the barriers again. Okay. And so I'm inviting everyone to see what your colleagues put as barriers. Hmm. And as you read over those barriers, what are you noticing? Kind of what themes are coming out, or what are you noticing as kind of common barriers to the ability to have a fixed mindset that contributes to collaboration and meeting those results? Please feel free to speak up. Raise your hand to speak up or put it in the chat box. What are you noticing about those barriers?
There is one thing I can see that feedback came 2 times for the group number 1 and group number 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's also, yeah. If we give the feedback, we have to think upon how we can do it better and how we can effectively provide feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, we often say that culture of feedback is what allows us to grow, that ongoing feedback. So doing it well. Thank you, Toto. Others are saying that feedback came up as well. Yeah. Organizational culture. Yeah. Safula, would you mind expounding on that, what you mean by organizational culture?
Yeah, a lot of time we see that maybe there is growth mindset people in the organization, but if there isn't any appropriate appraisal system is there, if there is no recognition or empowerment system is there, actually that puts a barrier for the individual as well as for the organization to actually cultivate this kind of growth culture, and that put barriers on the mindset of the employee. At one point in time, he will be frustrated and he will try to actually move somewhere else. So I think that actually it's a major barrier.
Okay. And so I'm hearing from you kind of the systems that we have in place, the culture that we have in place in organizations can limit that growth mindset. Even if someone
Right.
comes with it, it kind of dampens it, right? And pushes it down. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other reflections on these barriers? Right. All right. Well, let's scroll down to the strategies. There we go. And I invite you to read those as well, and to share with us what resonates from what you're hearing here, the good thinking of your colleagues.
Shirish, one comment I would like to make is here that many of the problems or many of the barriers we are talking about, one fundamental key aspect is team building. When we can build that team very well, then many of the problems will be solved. Because we are dealing with the organizations and we are in the organizational cultures. So team building is the most appropriate thing as a strategy that can be really important while this kind of barriers we might face.
All right. And so strengthening kind of that sense of team that can make people more willing to stretch out and have that growth mindset. Yeah. And that came up in our group in group 4 is, putting out that vision for the team and how they work together. Right.
Yes, I have got one issue. I think the respect to each another is another important issues, because if respect is very important in the team building.
Yeah, respect is healthy, helpful in creating that safe space, right?
Yeah. So I think respect is very important. Thank you.
Great. And Laura put in there the importance of effective communication comes through. And so if you're putting behavioral change communication, right, in order to change that mindset, all really important ways to build that growth mindset for ourselves and for those that we work with. Thank you. So now I want to kind of transition us back to Laura to share with us the ideas that Dr. Dweck had about strategies for creating that growth mindset.
Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate all of you for your active contributions and your good thinking. I think the actual strategies and thoughts Dweck offers from her research resonate and align beautifully with certainly what we saw in the Google Sheet, and I know in my small group, really it maps perfectly. So what we want to offer to you is this. The first thing Dweck says is we need to resign ourselves and just embrace the fact that we all have both mindsets. This is part of the human experience, and not to guilt yourself or shame yourself about realizing that, in fact, we have fixed mindsets in certain places. That's just an invitation to examine them more deeply and perhaps move into a different practice. It's critical to find out when you have a fixed mindset present, what is activating that? We call that looking at the triggers. And Dweck even goes so far as to say, have a conversation with yourself to unpack why that fixed mindset is here now. So it is in that conversation you can begin to deploy neuroplasticity to create those new pathways in your brain. Dweck says it is up to us to not only create, but then to concretize a new compelling belief about leading that ensures a vision of a positive outcome, particularly when navigating change and uncertainty. That's something we can control. And when failures happen, and I know this certainly occurred in my group, reframing that failure as a chance to learn. There should be no retribution. There should be no humiliation. This is just data to learn from. Use the identification of fixed mindset to really look at triggers, and with those triggers, pull that into your practice as a deepened self-awareness part of your emotional intelligence. Dweck says it is important to become a truly authentic, curious learner. You may think you know, and often what we see, I hope this won't surprise you, as you get older, one's certitude grows stronger. So can I say, well, I think I know, but I really should be open to learning. I should be curious about what others believe about this. Recommit to tenacity. That's that 10,000 hours to mastery. If you don't get it, try it again, and try it again. And this last one's so important. I think almost now more than ever, inspiration is all around you. There is a great quote that says, all your teachers are right here if you have the eyes to see them. So remembering it's not a competition. or as we like to say, the only person you should be competing with is you yesterday. If that's the frame you put this in, then growth mindset becomes available. So what we'd like to do right now is invite you to take a moment, and if you could, can I ask you just to make a note of one thing emerging from our work together today, one thing that you believe you might be able to do in your own leadership practice to move towards an increased growth mindset, something that would result in even more effective leadership and collaboration. And just take a moment to write a quick note to yourself. And can I invite you, if you're willing to disclose, if you'd be comfortable sharing, to head to the chat box and share with us what's the one thing you might be able to do that you believe would help you embrace more of a growth mindset, something that would really strengthen your own leadership practice. Can I ask you to drop that in the chat box? Tanya, please, you're welcome. You've got your hand up.
Thank you, Laura. If I was thinking that what if I can do anything, then I would actually create a respectful space to have a great communication, whatever actually limiting anyone to grow. So if I would have that opportunity, I will allow or invite anyone in that respectful environment to share their limitation and let them grow.
I love that. I think that is a wonderful vision to set for yourself, creating a respectful, supportive environment that would welcome people kind of identifying their own growth edge and then helping them cultivate that. Beautiful. I see some things are coming into the chat box. No competition, taking inspiration, learning attitude from others, beautifully done, really working on positive feedback. That's a great thing, being open to learn from everyone. That is so perfect. I like it. Very, very nice. Anyone else want to share kind of something you've identified for yourself? Create, not compete. Perfectly, perfectly done. Friends, I just want to offer some positive feedback to all of you. I am delighted and thrilled with how beautifully you've shown up, you've engaged, you brought your best thinking and experience to this conversation about growth mindset. Let me share with you what's next. We will be sharing back with you some reference pieces and video links for you to do some on your own time, deeper learning, looking, thinking, listening, to really even get a better handle on this body of work that Carol Dweck offers us. We are going to have a session evaluation, and we would welcome each of you. Please, 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 we need to hear from you how these are serving you. Is there anything we could be doing better in the spirit of growth mindset that would strengthen our ability to share with you what's going to be helpful? And I love these commitments keep coming into the chat box. You guys are amazing. Appreciate others' efforts. For any negativity, trying to convert to a positive way. Fantastic. I love it. And then last but not least, we will see you at next week's webinar. These topics we're offering to you will build one upon the next as we start to kind of expand our leadership tool bag. But with that, we just want to say thank you so very much. I want you all to be safe. Take